year. On behalf of the Ithaca Committee for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voice for Peace, I'd like to welcome you to our protest today. It's horrifying that we're coming together while our government is sending funds and weapons to support genocide in Gaza now. National and local leaders, both in government and civil society, are declaring their support for Israel, cheering on their war crimes as self-defense. They don't even mention the brutal assaults, mass killings, and forced evacuation of over 1 million Palestinians of Gaza under the threat of an impending ground invasion. On the other hand, we are grateful that you have come to break the silence and stand with Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza who are suffering from the boot of the brutal occupation. My friends in the West Bank, which is not in our news, are imprisoned in towns and cities now with all the checkpoints surrounding them closed. Schools shut down, food running out. Just many, lack electricity, water. There's an eerie feeling that Israel is telling them that they can suffer the same fate as Gaza in a heartbeat. And our friends and relatives in Gaza, for the most part, are completely cut off from the outside world, and those in the north have been demanded to leave their homes and hospitals to go south. Then the convoys are being massacred. We are here today to grieve and take action to end our government's contributions to the horrifying violence that is continuing to unfold right now in Gaza. We are grieving for all who have been killed in Israel and Palestine, those who are wounded, held hostage, and traumatized, and condemn all killing of unarmed civilians and war crimes. We believe in a future where all people, including Jews, Arabs, Muslims, are safe wherever we are. Protests in support of the people of Gaza are happening around the world. We're part of a global movement, and including the U.S., including Hiroshima, where the survivors are feeling their solidarity with Gaza. Please be sure to tell your Palestinian and Arab and Muslim neighbors to know how important your presence is in our community, and that we will stand with you against any threats. We are asking to begin with a moment of silence, and then we will have a music meditation to ground ourselves and fortify ourselves for the struggle to come. Afterwards, we will begin our program with some logistics, chants, gratitude for our enforcers, and a statement from the protest organizers, followed by presentations from activists, spiritual leaders, and poets. I want to just mention a few security measures. First, just assume that everything that we are saying here today is being recorded by those who oppose our stand for human rights and liberation. If you see anyone who is in danger and you can't help, please document it with your phone horizontally. Do Do not engage if there are counter-protesters. People will be available to de-escalate the situation. We may ask you to join us in a chant. And in case of the threat of violence, which we do not anticipate, we can move into the center of Ithaca. Okay, now I'm going to ask for a moment of silence, and then we'll move into the musical interlude. Thank you.
With all of you. Everyone who is gathered here, all of our relatives, we're united with one thing that holds every one of us in common, whatever our political belief might be, whatever our religious persuasion might be, however we orient ourselves. We are human beings. We're all human beings. We all have a beating heart. There is not a person amongst us who would not share the empathy of the suffering that comes upon any other human being. We are united in this. I have to say that the way that we talk about this conflict, the way that we talk about this situation is important and has repercussions. My younger brothers and sisters at the university who were petitioning to have even any reference to the Palestinian people mentioned in the statement that was put out by President Pollock were shut out. The Tompkins County Legislature issued a similar statement. Again, blanket support for Israel, no mention of the plight of the Palestinian people. We all, again, have empathy for people who are suffering through this conflict. We can empathize with any of them. But for us to think that we are approaching this situation with an even hand is a terrible mistake. If we do that from ignorance, then let's educate ourselves. And let's hope we're not doing it for other reasons. We have to look at the way that if we do not understand the situation in a context, what we're doing is we're effectively erasing the agency of the Palestinian people. We don't mention them. They're not there. They are the collateral in this game that is being played and is playing itself out right now. We, as human beings, with beating hearts that share the feelings of all people who are suffering, do we stand for war crimes? No. But can we be even-handed in what we say is a war crime? This is what we need to do. We stand against acts of terror. All of us stand against acts of terror. But do we recognize what an act of terror is? Can we recognize that the illegal siege that has been happening for 16 years on the people of Gaza, this is an act of terrorism? So, yes, we stand against terrorism, all terrorism. And to give our support for the people who are most in need, we need to take apart the narrative that is given to us by our regular news feed. We have to take this apart. We have to add the context to it. This is our responsibility. If we fail in this responsibility, the people who are suffering are not sitting in this plaza here, but we are connected to their suffering. We're connected to their, in terms of how we bring action. We know, I think many people here, the support that is given to this advancement. If we say, just go ahead, we give you the blank check, what's going to happen is something that many organizations rightly recognize as ethnic cleansing and genocide. Do we say we give a green light to genocide? No! I will leave my comments at this. There are many people who will speak more eloquently about the situation than myself, but please give your support. Support the aid organizations who are bringing aid to the Palestinians, and do what we can, raise our voices, put every pressure we can on our local government and the national government to do the right thing. In this case, we do not want to support this ongoing ethnic cleansing. Thank you.
Are publicly standing in solidarity with us. It includes Cornell Students for Justice in Palestine, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, the Ithaca Catholic Workers, Cornell Collective for Justice in Palestine, the Executive
Thank you so much, Beth. You're an inspiration. In light of the incessant doxing and violence threatened on those who speak up on behalf of Palestine, I brought my avocado tree here with me as a stabilizing and grounding influence. My partner and I grew it from a seed 5 years ago. A tree is so much more than shade or even the fruit it bears. It is culture, identity, anthropology, even interspecies connection. I say this in the context of the 800,000 olive trees that the occupation has destroyed in the West Bank. Olive trees that were managed collectively by Palestinians for centuries, maybe even millennia. This is life. Genocide is the opposite of life-affirming relationships. And the Israeli violence in Gaza right now is genocidal. And the US government is funding and defending the deliberate massacres of the Palestinian civilian population, its mass deportations from their homes, and their destruction of infrastructure. 1,000 joint direct attack ammunitions are being dropped every day. This dwarfs any military operation in human history and is largely against an unarmed, immobilized population, 50% of whom, 1 million, are under 15 years old. According to a former UN war crimes investigator, Mark Garlasco, Israel is dropping less in a week than what the US was dropping in Afghanistan in an entire year, and in a much smaller, much more densely populated area where mistakes are going to be magnified. According to the Times of Gaza, already more than 700 Palestinian children have been killed by these bombs in the last days. And these bombs are just the beginning. Human Rights Watch has determined, based on verified video and witness accounts, that Israeli forces used white phosphorus in military operations in Lebanon and Gaza on October 10th, on October 11th, respectively, munitions which are banned. In these atrocities, we really should not be so surprised. Israel is making good on its promise. The Israeli Defense Minister, Yoav Gallant, told us their intention. He said, quote, Gaza won't return to what it was before. We will eliminate everything. Shame. Shame. Some say that Israel has warned the population to evacuate, therefore absolving it of war crimes. The General Director of Doctors Without Borders, Mayin Nikolai, is unequivocal with respect to this absurd idea. She writes, Israel's 24-hour notice that people in northern Gaza must leave their land, homes, and hospitals is outrageous. This represents an attack on medical care and on humanity. We are talking about more than 1 million human beings. Unprecedented, doesn't even cover the medical humanitarian impact of this. Gaza is being flattened. Thousands of people are dying. This must stop now. We condemn Israel's demand in the strongest possible terms. Even family members of kidnapped Israelis, including Yonatan Zigan, has called for an end to this violence. Then there is the question of water, electricity, and internet, all cut off by the Israeli blockage. Water has stopped coming out of taps across the territory. Amal Abu Yahya, a 25-year-old pregnant mother in Gaza, said she waits anxiously for the few minutes each day or every other day when contaminated water trickles from the pipes in her basement. She then rations it, prioritizing her 5-year-old son and 3-year-old daughter. She said she is drinking so little herself, she can only urinate every other day. Near the coast, the only tap water is contaminated with the Mediterranean seawater because of the lack of sanitation facilities. Mohammed Ibrahim, 28 years old, said his neighbors in Gaza City have taken to drinking the salt water. This violence is incomprehensible. It is not going to lead to security or peace for Israelis. As Edward Said told us, history has no mercy. There are no laws in it against suffering and cruelty. No internal balance that restores a people much sinned against to their rightful place in the world. We have to fight for this, for the Palestinians. Martin Luther King Jr. told us that the arc of the universe bends towards justice. But this doesn't happen without social movements and courageous people who are determined to bend that arc in a moral direction. A first step, according to James Baldwin, is to understand the colonial racial violence that has created the world we live in and ourselves in it. As Baldwin reminds us, white America is trapped in a history it does not understand, and until it understands it, they will not be freed from it. The same should be said of American and Israeli apathy and ignorance of the rights of Palestinians today. Israel's apartheid system of governance and ongoing genocide in Gaza is not self-defense. Our political and academic leaders in the U.S. and Israel, including here in Ithaca and at Cornell University, are working hard to cover up this apartheid system of governance and silence our demands for Palestinian rights and liberation. They try to shame us into silence by calling our cries for justice anti-Semitic and destroy our careers by labeling us as terrorists. Here at Cornell, a DEI consultant, Duran Borders, was not defended by the university when he was attacked by right-wing media for mourning the thousands of Palestinians' lives lost. And this is despite the fact that on Cornell campus, we are supposedly in the year of expression. We must insist that Cornell and other academic institutions defend our right to share the details of the ongoing genocide happening right now. And yet, we are asked to condemn Hamas every minute, every sentence. All thinking people oppose terrorism, noted Amiri Baraka, and we do as well. We mourn the loss of innocent lives, children, civilian lives, children, both Israeli and Palestinians. We also want an independent investigation of war crimes carried out. But let me be clear the difference. I don't know Hamas. They could care less if I condemn them or not. We have no relationship on any institutional level. I have no responsibility for them, and I have no power over them. But guess what? As Americans, we do have a relationship with the Israeli Defense Forces. We fund them $3.3 billion a year. In my case, that's $11 a year for the past 18 years. I did not sign up for this subscription. I wish to cancel it. We all need to cancel this blank check. As we speak, our government is providing the weapons and political cover for their devastating violence. As we confront the racism and impunity of the police forces in the United States, we also need to expose their ties to the IDF's enforcement of apartheid and colonization in Palestine. When we say the names of the victims of police murders in the United States, like Breonna Taylor, we also need to say the names of Palestinians being murdered by the Israeli Defense Forces, like Shireen Abu Akleh, a Palestinian-American journalist, shot in cold blood by an Israeli sniper who is still walking free. So when Israeli defenders fixate on condemning Hamas, they are playing into Israel's strategy to strip all Palestinians of their humanity, to paint them as those who deserve an endless amount of carnage. We must support the human rights and dignity of Palestinian people, demand an end to the occupation of Palestinian territory and the blockade of Gaza. Even before this fighting began, due to the siege on Gaza, 90% of drinking water was undrinkable and contaminated. 40% of the population suffers from depression, the highest rate in the world. And again, 50% of the population is under 15 years old because life expectancy is so low. People ask why Palestinians don't protest non-violently. Maybe they forget, in 2018, Gaza became famous for its massive non-violent protests at the wall, which separated from the Palestinian ground Israel where they used to live for 1 million killed in 1948. When these unarmed Palestinians approached the wall in 2018, Israeli snipers were instructed to shoot live ammunition at their knees so that they would not be charged with murder, but so that these Palestinians would never walk again. One traumatized soldier later reported shooting 42 knees a day. Hamas is the pretext to criminalize and eliminate Palestinians. This is genocide. If you are Jewish or of Jewish ancestry like I am, you have been told that the repression and genocide of Palestinian people is necessary for our survival. We must not allow this racist violence to be perpetuated in our names. Zionism feeds off of Jewish fear that we won't be safe anywhere except Israel. We have to reject this. We have to contribute to, we have to believe, and manifest the radical possibility of a world without violence and domination. Let's embrace our humanity and the radical legacies of Judaism, Islam, and Christianity that all support universal rights and liberation for all.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine
phone numbers right here to call and addresses to send emails to Representatives Molinaro and Senators Schumer and Gillibrand. Do it today and every day this week. They are getting a flood of communication now to support Israel unconditionally. We are also circulating a petition to our Congressman Mark Molinaro and Senators Chuck Schumer and Christian Gillibrand to stop U.S. military aid in Israel to end the genocide in Gaza. Palestine will be free. Thank you for being here today.
People in Congress. Our next speaker is going to be Aya Luida, who is an Ithaca College Muslim anti-racist activist. Palestinians did not invade Israel, but they broke free. They are breaking free from 75 years of oppression, 75 years of torture, and 75 years of life in an open-air prison. For 75 years, the men of Palestine have been attacked, killed, and beaten. For 75 years, the women of Palestine have been raped, killed, and stripped away from the privilege of seeing their children grow up. For 75 years, the children of Palestine have feared the sight and the sounds of planes, and they have been murdered in the arms of their mothers and fathers. They have lived with the fear of everything they know and everyone they know being taken away from them in a matter of seconds. For 75 years, the world has turned its face away from the people of Palestine. Despite the world's forgetfulness, from generation to generation, the people of Palestine have continued to have hope. Hope that one day they will be able to leave their homes with certainty, that when they return, it will still be standing. And when they enter, they'll hear the conversations of their family, the laughter of their children, and the greetings of their loved ones. A group of Palestinian boys were asked what they dream of. They answered, "I dream of eating shawarma. I dream of eating sugar. I dream that my father became the same as he was before. I dream the roads weren't blocked anymore." Two of those boys both said, "I dream that my brother would come back to life. I miss him so much." The settlement that the Palestinian resistance fighters have seized is called cinema. It's called this because Israeli settlers, they would go to the spot, they'd sit on their chairs, and they would watch missiles rain down on the innocent people of Gaza. When someone defends their country, that does not make them a terrorist. Do not underestimate people's desire for freedom. We are all standing here today because we know that this is not only about what has happened in the last week or the last hours. This is about what has been going on for 100 years when Britain gave away the rights of Palestinians. There is no alternative path to resistance. Palestine has committed to negotiations and nonviolence. Palestine has committed to international law and resolutions in hopes that it would do the one thing it was supposed to do, to end its occupation and stop colonial settlement, expansion. You cannot equate between the occupied and the occupier in the same way that you cannot call this conflict of Israel and Palestine a two-sided situation, because as I've said before, there is no two sides to a genocide. Israel cannot continue to be the exception to the rules that are created by the League of Nations after the Second World War, as it has been for the last 75 years. Israel must be held accountable for the crimes committed against the people they have occupied by the international judicial system. Nearly 5,200 Palestinians are being held in Israeli jails. 33 women, 170 minors, and more than 1,200 have been placed there under administrative detention. Hamas has enough Israeli captives to free all of the prisoners, because Palestinians know that in the eyes of Israelis and the international community, Israeli lives are far more valuable than Palestinians.
This has been proven in 2011 when a singular captive Israeli soldier was exchanged for 1,027 Palestinian political prisoners. Jewish people deserve land and peace and a homeland, but not at the cost of ethnic cleansing, apartheid, colonialism, and displacement of the people who have occupied the land before them. I will now read to you a post that has been circulating the internet. It was written by an Israeli journalist, and then old. And I want you to take in the irony of these words and just listen and let it touch your heart. Gaza will not remain Gaza after this is done. Those days are over. We tried. We gave it to you to build a state. You built a terror base. Terror bases have no right to exist. You made the choice. You'll pay the price. And to all the innocent people who will pay the price of their bloodthirsty government, I am so sorry your people chose this path. It could have ended differently. You don't just come into a Jewish state, massacre hundreds of people, kidnap hundreds more, and expect to live to tell about it, do you? Well, let me tell you, you got in over your head there. You had the chance to build a peaceful Palestinian state, but instead, you built a concentration camp and a terror camp for your people. And a terror camp dedicated to genocide. But the days of Jews going to the gas chambers are over. Israel has put a complete siege on Gaza. No electricity, no water, no food, no gas. Because, and I quote the Israeli defense minister, we're fighting with animals and are acting accordingly. Many Israeli soldiers have gone on the internet and posted and have spoken proudly of the crimes they have committed. I went to Gaza and there were two little children who were playing football. So what did I do? I took my weapon and I shot them in the head. Of course, only reasonable thing there was. These are the words of a soldier, an Israeli soldier, speaking to someone unalive. Palestinian resistance is now Palestinians trying to survive. Supportively remember that land you have to kill for is not yours, and land you have to die for is. If it was their land, they wouldn't want to see it burn. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Malak. I have family in Gaza, and I always will and always have to speak for Palestine.
Louder!
In the name of oppression, the right to resist is a fundamental human principle, but for Palestinians, it seems this right is often ignored. When tens of thousands of residents participated in the Great March of Return in 2018, bravely protesting against the illegal wall that isolates Gaza from the world, against the illegal blockade suffocating them, and from the right to return to their ethnically cleansed land, they were met with rubber bullets, tear gas, and live fire from Israeli occupation forces. A horrifying toll of 266 lives lost and over 30,000 civilians hospitalized was the result. One must ask, was this not a valid form of resistance? When Americans and Palestinian allies called for a boycott by West and sanction on Israeli apartheid, they are justly labeled as anti-Semitic, and our own government actively opposes our exercise of this right. As of 2021, 35 states have passed bills and executive orders designed to discourage boycotts of Israel. Shame on them. When Palestinians in the West Bank went on strike in the first Intifada, the Israeli occupation forces forced the doors of the shops open, imposed curfews, and shut down Palestinian schools. They tell us it is our right to resist an occupying force, yet they do not support our peaceful resistance movement and remain silent when Israeli aggression disrupts our everyday lives. Israel has likened recent events to their 9/11, but the stark reality is that while lives were taken on both sides, The oppressed are clearly the Palestinians. Palestinians have witnessed a 9/11 for the past 75 years. The world seems willing to condemn Hamas, yet stays strangely silent about the war crimes committed by Israeli occupation forces. Israel is dropping in less than a week what the U.S. was dropping in Afghanistan in a year. Let that sink in. Israel has illegally forced 1.1 million Palestinians to evacuate their homes in less than 24 hours, as if their infrastructure has the capability after all their bombing, as if they weren't going to bomb the evacuation routes. The real terrorists are Netanyahu and the occupation forces. The terrorists that expelled my family from their homes in Ithaca. The terrorists that killed my relatives as they hide in refugee camps. The terrorists that are now committing a genocide in Gaza. My cousin in Gaza is 4 years younger than me, and she has already experienced this massacre 6 times in her short life. My prayers are not only for peace, but also for her justice. For our right to return. I pray that these warmongers, politicians, and terrorists are all held accountable for this heinous crime, be it in this life or in the depths of hell. I read this poem yesterday at a visual. This is a poem from someone from Gaza and what they're experiencing currently. It's called The Birds Have Left. The birds left the skies of Gaza and migrated. Buzzing spider dust has occupied their clouds and are hunting the people of the land. The peaceful whistling has been replaced by loud explosions. The living streets are now filled with bodies wrapped in blood-soaked white sheets. The sound of children playing is no more. Now is the mother's hoarse voice echoing through the Gaza streets as she desperately screaming her children's names between the ruins of her bombed house, hoping a survival will respond. The birds have migrated, and now it's the enemy drone hovering high in the sky between the clouds, looking for more dreams to shatter. The birds have migrated and left the shore. It was once a peaceful place where many families would grill corn cobs for their children and enjoy the sound of waves. Now it is a place where people all amass in the search of safety. The birds have migrated because they are privileged to leave. Their wings carry them wherever they want to go. The birds have migrated and left the people of Gaza stuck behind the walls and the sea. The birds have migrated and left the angels to take the souls of residents. And now we say the Gazans are migrating to heaven. Free Gaza, free Palestine.
For justice and Palestine.
I'm going to ask everybody in the first couple, 3 rows to just come forward a little bit more so the folks in the back can hear. I come from a tradition of resistance. I come from Sojourner Truth. I come from Harriet Tubman. I come from Paul Robeson. I come from Du Bois. They're deep, deep traditions of resistance in the African American culture, in the culture of African peoples in the diaspora. They're deep traditions of resistance in Jewish culture and in Jewish history. There are times in the pogrom when they came to massacre the Jews, but there are Jewish folks who said, you can kill us, you can decimate us, you can massacre us, but you will not eliminate us. We survived. We survived. There are deep, deep traditions of resistance in Palestinian culture and in Palestinian history. There are Palestinians who have said that you may come and kill us, you may come and massacre us, you may decimate us, but you will not eliminate us. We survived. We survived. We survived. Those are the traditions that I claim as an internationalist. Those traditions belong to me. They influence me. They inspire me. And I stand today on those traditions. In the name of resistance, we survive. We survive. We survive. Ella Baker, the great organizer, said at the height of the civil rights movement that until the killing of black mothers' sons is as important as the killing of white mothers' sons, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. Much earlier, in the context of the spread of fascism in the 1930s, as the Western imperialist powers stood by, as fascist Italy conquered and subjugated Ethiopia, the Ethiopian Emperor Haile Selassie, a very complicated figure tied to feudalism, nevertheless, he said words that anticipated elevation. He said, until the philosophy that holds one people superior and another people inferior is finally eradicated and abandoned, everywhere is war. Everywhere is war. Everywhere is war. Until the killing of Palestinian mothers' children is as important as the killing of Israeli mothers' children, everywhere is war. What if we believed the rhetoric of Western democracies? What if we took it seriously? What if we actually believed it? What if we practiced it? What if we believed that all of us were created equal? What if we actually believed that? What if we practiced it? What if we believed that all human beings have the right to self-determination? What if we believed that? What if we believed that all human beings have the right to human rights? Well, then we'd have to call Israel what it is. We'd have to call Israel an ethno-racist state. We'd have to call Israel a genocidal project, a settler colonial project. We'd have to call Israel a death mission. I want to acknowledge that there are deep divisions among progressives within the left in the wake of the Hamas operation. Deep divisions. among the comrades that I organize with, there are deep divisions over how we should characterize Hamas, about how we should respond. I have great respect. There are deeply principled people with whom I've had the honor to organize, with whom I disagree. And it's this moment that has exposed ideological and philosophical divisions within the left that have been papered over for many years. And it's not just liberals, they're genuine leftists, they're genuine radicals that have deep disagreements, deep conflicts. My personal position, and you must understand, I hate violence. I hate violence. I can't stand guns. I come from a deep tradition of peace. I come from a deep tradition of resistance to militarism and to war. I will never presume on principle. I will never presume to tell an oppressed people how they should seek their liberation. Abhor the killing of civilians. Horrific. If you did to me what has been done to the people of Gaza, what has been done to the Palestinian people, systematically for 75 years, you displaced me, you dispossessed me, you bulldozed my orchards, if you destroyed my water, if you prevented me from gaining access to health care, to electricity, if you destroyed my infrastructure, if you tried to destroy my culture, if you destroyed my olive groves, if you penned me in checkpoints, you segregated me, you degraded me, you humiliated me, if you threatened my family, if you threatened my daughter, I who hate violence would take up arms. Hamas is rife with contradictions. Hamas is rife with contradictions. Every authority that has presumed to speak on behalf of Palestinian people is rife with contradictions. Part of what white supremacy does, part of what Zionism does, is to homogenize people. It homogenizes Jews. It tries to homogenize Jews. It tries to raise Jewish resistance to Zionism and apartheid. Certainly, it homogenizes Arabs, Muslims, and Palestinians. There's tremendous philosophical diversity within Gaza, within the occupied territories, within Palestine, within the Palestinian diaspora, because Palestinians are human beings. There's a whole range of opinions and outlets and responses to Hamas. There are many Gazans There are many Palestinians who abhor violence against civilians. It horrifies them. It sickens them. But we must ask ourselves, what has Hamas done? Before that, we must ask ourselves, do we only support Palestinians when they're passive victims? Do we only support Palestinians as objects? Can we support Palestinians as agents? What has Hamas done? Hamas has shifted the balance of power. Hamas has punctured the illusion of invincibility. That's what they've done. You don't have to be a Hamas supporter to recognize that. Hamas has changed the terms of debate. The Israeli officials are right. Nothing will be the same again. Nothing will be the same again. Hamas has challenged the monopoly of violence. And in those first few hours, even as horrific acts were being carried out, many of which we would not learn about until later, there are many Gazans of goodwill, many Palestinians of conscience, who abhor violence, as do you, as do I, who abhor the targeting of civilians, as do you, as do I, who were able to breathe. They were able to breathe for the first time in years. It was exhilarating. It was exhilarating. It was energizing. And if they weren't exhilarated by this challenge to the monopoly of violence, by this shifting of the balance of power, then they would not be human. I was exhilarated.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
The Western imperialist powers, meanwhile, have shown their perversity, their obscenity. They intend to use this moment to carry out their geopolitical aims. They're doubling down on their racism. They're doubling down on their Islamophobia. They're doubling down on their repression. They're betraying the very Western liberal principles that they espouse, supposedly the very principles that underlie their support for Israel and underlie the mythology of Israel as a liberal democracy surrounded by Islamist terror. They're outlawing protests, right? They're outlawing. Their project is settler colonialism. Their project is white supremacy. Their project is militarism. Their project is death. We resist them. We defy them. I think I understand, to some degree, some of the premises of Zionism. Indeed, I think I can relate to it. in the sense that my people have been victims of a Holocaust, the African Holocaust. We understand that. We understand genocide. We understand being vulnerable. We understand being attacked generation after generation. We understand not feeling safe anywhere. We understand that. You can't tell me about that. You can't tell my people about that fear, that terror. We understand it quite intimately. And so we also understand the seduction of the idea that we never have to fear again. That we will be so powerful that we will crush our enemies. It has deep appeal to oppressed people. I understand that. We have to ask, what makes us strong? The nuclear weapons make us strong. The missiles make us strong. Does white phosphorus make us strong?
No.
Does racism make us strong? No. Does Islamophobia make us strong? Does apartheid make us strong?
No.
Do checkpoints make us strong?
No.
Does settler colonialism make us strong? Does it guarantee our safety? Does it keep us safe?
No.
Does it honor our ancestors?
No.
The same ones who said, you may kill us, you may slaughter us, you may decimate us, but you will not eliminate us. This is precisely what the Palestinian people are saying. You will not eliminate us. We survive, we resist. Until we end the settler colonial project, until we end apartheid, everywhere is war. Everywhere is war. Everywhere is war. I close with a word to the young people, particularly the students, who are losing their fear. Who are losing their fear. It's such a beautiful thing to see it unfold. They can dox us. They can put us on their websites. They can vilify us. They can demonize us. Defame us. Can't turn us around.
No.
They can't end our resistance.
No.
They can't end our defiance. I'm so proud of you. Let me tell you that it is a tremendous privilege and an honor to engage in this struggle alongside you, my comrades. There's nothing that they can do to you that will cause us to abandon the Palestinian people. And I'm so glad that you joined us on this battlefield. And we're going to stay on this battlefield till we die. Up, liberation, down, down, occupation. Up,
liberation, down, down, occupation. Up, liberation, down, down, occupation.
what? I'll tell you the story of this. I did not purchase this. I inherited it from my parents, who inherited it from their grandparents. And it was always a symbol for us growing up, and it was a symbol for me, especially as a young child, learning more and more about Palestine, that this was something I could never forget. That this was part of me, and it was part of my family, even though we weren't Palestinians. And that came to a head in 2006 when, as you can all imagine, our family trip to Lebanon didn't go as planned, and we didn't end up going. So, Israel has not just brought harm and violence and suffering on Palestinians, although they have always and frequently been their most direct targets. They also harmed the rest. They've harmed the rest of Southeast Asia. They've harmed North Africa. They've harmed the diaspora community that cannot go back to their countries because we understand that we are at war with a war machine. So when people ask me why I always do this, I say, well, this is the only way. This is the only way I can recognize the way in which families and loved ones and friends of families will never be seen. I will never see some of my cousins in person because I cannot go back. And that's a problem. But bringing it back to the present moment, I've been crying for an entire week. I have just broken down publicly in numerous spaces, and spaces that were safer than others, and sometimes just at the grocery store. Wegmans, if you see a woman casually sobbing, just ignore her, please. And the reason I've been crying is because I realize that I'm already mourning. I know what Israel will do, and I have no doubt that they will follow through their promises. And to sit here in Ithaca, New York, and have to go to classes and teach students and keep writing and go to your staff meetings and, have email correspondence, which is garbage on any day for most of us, and then also have to know that 1 million people will die. And the world just goes on as if nothing happened. This is a terrifying thing to have to carry every moment of every day. And it is something that my body has been carrying every moment of every day. And so, when I think about how to move forward, I think about other people. I think about the people who were shot in the knees, as Ben mentioned, who will now probably die. I think about the people who are blinded or deafened by bombs. I think about the people who have to leave their disabled children, as so many people have brought up in recent visits. I think about the way in which they have effectively maimed and killed an entire ethnic group of people. They have killed, and they have rented disabled, and they have killed, and they have maimed, and they will try to destroy a group of people that are doing their absolute best to fight back. And so, when I ask myself, why am I standing here today, I think about not just the people that will die, but the people that will live after this. The people that will live knowing that their bodies carry the mark of Israel's attempt to wipe them out. The people that will live knowing that their siblings couldn't make it because they didn't fit into the 5-person car, as one person mentioned. And so I cry. But the one thing I will say is that I just want to encourage every single person here to not forget about the people that live. Because even after all of this happens, even when the news is over and suddenly it's not shiny and new anymore, to watch a bunch of brown bodies die, the people will live. And people need to be helping those people. And so, please, just keep coming back. Keep coming to these rallies. Keep writing to your representatives. This doesn't just stop when we have, obscene amount of bloodshed. It happens every day. And for many of us, it will impact every part of our lives, whether or not we are Palestinians. So, I just want to end here today by asking you all to don't forget. Whoa.
sentences, don't see Jim Crow signage in courtyards, but the same structures still shackle the ankles of black inmates. We spend $2.1 million a year to put a soldier in Afghanistan. 35,000 to lock a black kid up with racist laws, and a third of that on education, and only $15,000 on a minimum wage job. Pundits pontificate on the colorblind era we live in, where race gets thrown out of the class struggle and intersecting systems of oppression don't get airtime. The world is a messed up place, and you seem to be profiting nicely. Noise-canceling headphones, blocking out ambulance and police sirens in the faint distance. A Palestinian kid was shot in the back by the bullet subsidized by your tax dollars. The guy who used to deliver your weed was just sentenced to 8 years in prison with no priors. The drone buzzing will be heard one day over Brooklyn, but it will skip your gentrified neighborhood. You will have nothing to worry about. We don't want this. The messed up world, crash your baby's low. In 2015, one of my favorite poets, Remy Kanazi, wrote those words. And those words still ring true to this day. Nothing has changed. The story painted by Western media casually forgets the 75 years of oppression that Palestinians have endured, the 15 years of blockade that Gazans had to endure. This is not new for Palestine, but this is new for Israel. They're not used to having the same reaction they're not used to having the same fight again on their own turf. I'm here to discuss the Palestinian struggle in relationship to black and brown bodies in America. In 2020, most people know, but I am so grateful that I did all of that, even though I was scared. But my body still remembers tear gas and pepper bullets. I still remember what it feels like to get kettled just to protest and fight for the lives of black Americans. And the same thing is happening to Palestinians, but worse. In Atlanta, if you haven't heard, Stop Custody, they are trying to put away, 136 acres of Fulani forest for a cop playground. It just so happens to also be sponsored by the IDF. Atlantan police have learned their skills from the Israeli Defense Forces and have applied those same tactics to black Americans and indigenous people in Atlanta. This is a problem, not just for us, but for everyone.
Palestine will be free! From the river to the sea! Palestine will be free! In the face of oppression! Palestine will be free! In the face of genocide! Palestine will be free!
grows, it blossoms. In Palestine, a bird soars overhead. Thank you.
Again, as a human rights educator,
apartheid that Israel has committed against Palestinians is a crime against humanity. It's the crime against humanity of apartheid. Israel has also been violating the Geneva Convention, violating the law of armed conflict, also known as humanitarian law. We know all of this. And we need to hold our government accountable for its staunch support of Israel. As we said by many others before, we living in this country, the very least we can do is try to hold our government accountable for its moves. It is very sad to reflect on the fact that the modern human rights framework came about in 1948 after World War II, and it was precisely because the horrors that were perpetrated during the Holocaust that the international community came together and in this sobering moment reflected on what was then called a shock to the conscience. The world was shocked by what had happened, and for a brief moment committed to not let it happen again. And what is the fundamental principle of making sure it not happens again? That is that everybody's human rights are the same. It has to be universal. We cannot have one set of rights for Christians, one set of rights for Muslims, or one set of rights for Jews, or one set of rights for whatever people believe or don't believe. There cannot be one set of rights for white people and for people of color. There cannot be one set of rights depending on where you live, where you grew up, whether or not you have a citizenship or don't have to be a citizenship. And this is what international human rights is all about. It's the universality. All of us have these rights by virtue of being human beings. It is deeply troubling that the modern human rights framework, which came out of the sobering moment, should now be neglected, glossed over, ignored by Israel, which often seems to claim the rights of Jewish Israelis are important, but not the rights of Palestinians, which seems to feel it can ignore international law because it does not apply to them in the name of national security. How many international laws have been violated? Violated by our country, violated by other countries, violated by Israel.
All of them.
All of them. Exactly. I want to share very briefly with you on a personal note. While I have not been in Gaza, last summer I did visit occupied West Bank, and I met with many Palestinians, and I listened to their stories. I was deeply affected by what I heard and what I witnessed. People told me of young relatives, teenage boys, who were shot dead in the head by Israeli soldiers because they threw stones against the wall. I have heard how people struggle getting their water when, they have access to water for 10 hours a day, whereas the Israeli settlements that are built on their stolen land have access to water 24/7. I have heard people talk about several demolition orders being on their properties and rebuilding and rebuilding and rebuilding. I've heard about school teachers who have to get up at 4 in the morning because there's a long line at the checkpoint so that they can be in East Jerusalem by 7 so that they can start the school day. I have heard more stories that I could spend an hour talking about the stories that I witnessed. And I have talked about hours because it's different people who need urgent medical care routinely are prevented from getting to doctor's appointments. This is also a humanitarian crisis. And we know what that means when the people in Gaza cannot go to the hospital, or the hospitals cannot get medicine, they cannot get electricity. These also are war crimes. I can tell you this, when I was in the West Bank, it does not take a genius to realize that you cannot oppress a people like this
away indefinitely without there being consequences. All of what is happening in this region today has to be understood in this larger context. Military actions will not solve this problem. It requires a political solution that leads to a just and fair peace in Palestine. We're not talking about a peace where only one side is considered and only one side gets their way. In order for there to be a just and fair peace in Palestine, there needs to be a political solution, and it seems to me that our country is not committed to that. Our president stood up and said, we unequivocally stand with Israel. We do not need unequivocal or unconditional support of Israel and its military campaigns. We need to hold Israel accountable. I'm also deeply disturbed by the one-sided coverage we've been getting in the mainstream media, and I urge you to go to reliable sources. I urge you to get the voices of Palestinians out there and be shared on social media, and I urge you to be mindful of what this content you share, because there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there. So please be cautious and careful and mindful as you share news. Now more than ever, we need to speak out and talk truthfully about what has been happening in Palestine, even as many try to silence us. Demonstrations in many European countries have been shut down. As soon as people speak out and try to give Palestinian perspective, or even if they just try to say, we need to see this in a larger context, we're accused of being anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitism has nothing to do with it. Right? We need to be clear about that. We need to be pushing back against these narratives. So I want to thank all of you for the courage you have, for being out here. Stay in the fight and do what you can. Thank you.
I want to be clear. Just getting started.
be out here with you connected in our time. I just came from a temple, the synagogue that I belong to. I was visiting children and parents. And I've been down there every week. And we had our plans this week, and we dropped them. Because there was nothing else we could talk about. And we sat together all our class last week and provided them with the context that they needed to try to navigate what is going on in Israel and Palestine, to understand some of the historical context which they too often lack. Maybe it was too much information for them because I asked one of my students afterwards what she took and she couldn't remember anything. But she is 12. But we're planting the seeds. And I think the name of the game for me as a Jewish American whose family members survived the Holocaust, killed in the Holocaust, is in this moment to multitask. We as Jews I'm trying to learn to multitask. So on the one hand, in my synagogue, we're holding space for people who are grieving. Israeli people who are grieving the deaths of their loved ones. That I will do. We are in grief for those who have been killed and died. But I can step into another space. That's the thing. We can't stop there. I'm not stopping there. So what I refuse to do is have my grief for the people in Israel who have been lost, be weaponized. So our grief to be weaponized for the more killing of Palestinians, to be weaponized to commit another genocide. It is full of contradiction in a country that was founded, at least on a major purpose, to provide that safe, apparent safe space for people who were surviving the Holocaust, to now turn around and weaponize that same grief to do the same thing. I'll speak about anti-Semitism in only one way today. I've been thinking about it a lot, and there's one way that anti-Semitism isn't spoken too much about in Jewish spaces, that which is the bigger picture of Jewish people and Palestinian people being set up in the larger colonial context. So often Jewish people are being set up to be front and center in empire for the purposes of empire, for the purposes of land and power and oil and resources. And what is incredibly unfortunate is that they don't care about Jewish people or Israelis. And it doesn't make us any safer. And we become those casualties. And what is more unfortunate is that the Israeli and American political leadership seems more than happy to collude with this type of vicious anti-Semitism that's happening, that continue to pit us against each other. So I think that is just a bit of context that I tried to share with my students. And then we can speak about the occupation. We can speak about, well, first of all, I have to acknowledge that I'm an American Jew that's living on Gayakono territory, more than any territory. That's a huge connection. That connects to the liberation struggle of the Gayakono people and the Palestinian people. And we can speak about the occupation, the blockade, but we also, I have to speak about the Nakba, 1948. A great catastrophe where 750,000 Palestinians were displaced. And so many of those Palestinians were displaced to the Gaza Strip. Just a little bit of hope coming out of Congress, where 55 Congress members recently put out a demand to President Biden. They demanded a few things. One, they demanded, and I want to share those demands, to continue to name those demands. I want to name those demands. that we must immediately restore the delivery of food, water, fuel, electricity, and other life-saving necessities to Gaza. No response. Thank you. The next one is to publicly discourage here in the United States and in Israel and everywhere, discourage any hate crimes and backlash against any American, including Jews and Muslims, including by communicating to the American people that Hamas is not the Palestinian people. And Palestinian people are not Hamas. Jews are not Israel. Israel. Everyone deserves the right to speak English and read it like human beings. And finally, to ensure that if we're going to send any support to that region, we should be sending humanitarian support to the people of Gaza. So lastly, I face this as a Muslim, as a Jewish American person. So I'm thinking myself, so here we are in Hebrew, Panim and Panim, face to face, with a huge moral challenge. Even as we mourn our dead in Israel, we must acknowledge and protest the genocide Israel is currently carrying out and slowly has been. Rabbi Brent Rosen shares, let us respond with understanding, and I'm not necessarily speaking to people who are oppressed. I'm not telling people who are oppressed how you must respond. I speak from the perspective of a Jewish person. I believe we should respond with understanding, compassion, and most importantly, action. To continue our actions, to continue to stand up, even amidst the terrible grief. Let us shine an unflinching light on the true roots of this violence and on the vision of a future based on justice and equality for all who live in that land.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And now we have Linda Gaither, and she is sharing a statement. It's an ecumenical statement by a number of Christian groups. And one of the things that is happening here in New York State is that a lot of the Christian organizations are creating a very strong coalition so that we can fight for justice in Palestine.
I'm going to plant myself here to speak, but I wanted to say this week has been one of the most tumultuous weeks emotionally that I can remember. I'm exhausted by this week, and I think my main feeling was an overwhelming loneliness. I haven't felt that lonely, even though I was in close contact with friends and comrades. Maybe because finally there were no words. So I just want to thank all of you. I'm not feeling particularly lonely. So I was a member of our Committee for Justice in Palestine, Jewish Voice for Peace, but I also am a national leader for the Episcopal Peace Fellowship's Palestine Israel Network. We call them PINs. Every mainline denomination has a PIN. And we're organized together, we share information, and we share campaigns and initiatives. And so one of the things, as a person involved with the church all the time, that I want to ask, what are the U.S. mainline churches saying in the face of a humanitarian crisis that is overwhelming Gaza? I did want to say that I have worked on trying to change my church with wonderful, wonderful comrades who taught me everything I know for 20 years, advocating to change the policy of my church and to admit and make it a policy to recognize Israeli apartheid. And I know that others in this crowd are doing the same thing in the United Church of Christ, in the Roman Catholic Church. We are working for change. It is slow. To me, it sometimes feels like watching paint dry. I think there are two main reasons for the hesitancy, the slowness of the churches to grapple with this tremendous injustice in Palestine. First is ignorance of what is going on, and we can thank the mainstream media for that. And the second thing is the fear of being called anti-Semitic, particularly by church leaders. Church leaders who have friends and meet weekly for coffee with the other clergy and their rabbi friends. Church leaders of big denominations who don't want their denominations to be called anti-Semitic. It's fear. And in some ways it is also cowardice, and I find it a soul-rotting thing to watch, but I understand it. Change is slow. That is not an excuse for the slowness, but I think it's a reality. So what are mainline churches saying about in the face of genocide? Well, I am going to read you a statement by something called the Churches for Middle East Peace. I'm going to refer to it as CMEP, which is what we do. And it is an organization of 30 national church communions and organizations in this country, including Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant, and evangelical traditions. Please note, Christian Zionists are not members of CMEP, and CMEP and I reject the support, reject Christian Zionism and their support for the Israeli settlement movement. So if you went to a CMEP meeting, I will just say this before I read. You would see many names in the bulletin. You'd see Presbyterians, Lutherans, American Baptists, United Methodists, Quakers, Unitarian Universalists, the Conference of Catholic Bishops, the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate in America, my own denomination, Episcopalians, and many others. So they are the endorsers of what I'm going to read here. I think you'll hear the beginnings of some movement here. Churches for Middle East Peace, CMEP, is deeply grieved by the news coming out of Israel and Gaza. CMEP condemns all acts of violence against civilians that have occurred as fighting has escalated between Hamas and Israel. CMEP mourns with all the victims of the violence and their families. The actions of Hamas and the Israeli response in Gaza in no way advance peace, but rather cause loss of life, harm, grief, and devastation, not only to the individuals affected, but also to the legitimate cause of the Palestinian people in seeking an end to the decades-long occupation and total blockade of the Gaza Strip. Throughout this year, CMEP and allies have urgently been calling attention to the evolving context, characterized by escalating levels of violence between settlers, soldiers, and Palestinians. The increased nationalism and radicalization within Israel society have led to more frequent and numerous incidents of hatred, racialized tensions, settler attacks, and incursions into Muslim and Christian holy sites, such as the Stella Maris Monastery in Haifa and the Al-Aqsa compound in Jerusalem. These realities aren't justifications for violence, but have long been ignored by the international community, including the long-standing frustration and desperation of the Palestinian people, who seek an end to the the oppression of the occupation and Israeli desires for their own lack of fear and for security. It is time for the U.S. and the international community to strengthen efforts to de-escalate the systemic violence that has gone on for decades. And here are the specific calls of CMEP and all those endorsing churches. CMEP calls on all parties to end all acts of violence and aggression and to pursue peaceful and diplomatic resolutions to accomplish their desired outcomes. Number two, CMEP is concerned that Israel's response is disproportionate and urges it not to engage in military actions that devastate Palestinian civilian populations. CMEP opposes Israel's practice of collective punishment of all people in Gaza, including the turning off of electricity and water. 3, CMEP calls on Hamas to stop all acts of aggression, the targeting of Israeli civilians, and the taking of civilian hostages. Number 4, CMEP calls on the United States government, including the Biden administration and Congress, not to act rashly, but to prioritize immediate diplomatic measures to bring an end to the violence, including to the United Nations. And number 5, CMEP urges the U.S. government to refrain from providing further unrestricted material and political support for further militarization of the conflict, but rather focus on the protection of all civilians, especially the most vulnerable. The U.S. must not prioritize the support of one side of the conflict over another, but should support the safety and dignity of all people in the Holy Land, including Israelis and Palestinians. While the United States empathizes with Israeli suffering, so should it empathize with Palestinian suffering. Furthermore, the U.S. should not exacerbate the problem by ignoring the legitimate struggle of the Palestinian people for their rights. And they call us all to prayer. And for those of you here who are members of congregations, it's time to raise the issue. It's time to give some real truthful information in spite of the false information and the slanted information that people are so sure they know. Find out what your denomination is doing. Write to denominational leaders. This is a moment that's going to test the moral fiber of the churches. And we've paved the way over the years, great progress has been made. But you know, it's like a sleeping giant. If we can get the churches moving, that's not a bad thing. Thank you.
Say the word Palestine.
We are for poetry and the sources of poetry. June Jordan, the great poet, American poet, wrote, "I said I love you, and I want genocide to stop." Hands are cold. I'm going to read a poem from Khalid Juma, who is a Palestinian poet. And this poem is a few years back. Title, "O Rascal Children of Gaza." O rascal children of Gaza, you who constantly disturbed me with your screams at my window, you who filled every morning with rush and chaos, you who broke my vase and stole the lonely flower on my balcony, come back and scream as you want, and break all the vases, steal all the flowers. Come back, just come back. This is my poem. It's called "The Wheel," and it's a Buddhist meditation. Of course, I was thinking about Palestine. The wheel. Animal Derek can build a treadmill for the elephant because all he does is lay around. Even the bulbs this spring bloom out of turn, each waiting for the other to open. One exasperated soldier. How can I demolish the house of my enemy? The house is my own suffering. And inside, the children of my suffering multiply. It's a short poem. I just want to read the last section one more time and leave it with you. One exasperated soldier. How can I demolish the house of my enemy? The house is my own suffering. And inside, the children of my suffering multiply. Stop the war. Free Gaza. Free Palestine.